Thank you for a very interesting and provocative paper, which deserves discussion. So the first discussant is Professor Rasetto. Where is he sitting? I'm sorry, I can't read your labels from here. There, thank you. Go ahead, please.
Buenos días. Yo pienso que el tema de las relaciones entre el Estado, el mercado y lo que se suele entender como sociedad civil debe ser puesto para una buena comprensión del mismo y sobre todo para proyectar nuevas soluciones y nuevas estructuras, tanto del mercado como de la política y de la solidaridad civil, debe ser insertado históricamente en lo que estamos viviendo en el mundo contemporáneo. Que yo pienso, en mi opinión, es que estamos transitando hacia una nueva civilización. Una nueva civilización hacia la que creo yo que está recién comenzando, pero que está creándose efectivamente. Y que está siendo posible este tránsito por algunas importantes innovaciones y novedades en el campo de las comunicaciones y de los medios de información y sobre todo de la Internet, que está modificando los modos de producir, los modos de comercializar, los modos de aprender, los modos de conocer, los modos en que las personas se relacionan y que tiene y está llamada a tener en el futuro muchos mayores impactos transformadores de la economía y de la política. Nosotros no conocemos cuáles son los contenidos que tendrá esta civilización que se está empezando a crear y hacia la cual estamos transitando, porque los contenidos de ella no están predeterminados y, por lo tanto, podemos pensar también que en alguna medida, como vaya a ser esa nueva civilización, depende también de nosotros. Y en particular podemos pensar que depende de manera importante de la Iglesia. Quienes contribuirán, quienes incidirán de manera más significativa en los modos como esa nueva civilización se vaya desplegando y construyendo, serán, creo yo, principalmente quienes se planteen el tránsito a esa nueva civilización como un proyecto consciente, que se lo propongan conscientemente realizar y de la claridad conceptual y de la decisión con que participen en dicho proyecto que es económico, político y cultural. Yo creo que, hago aquí un pequeño comentario, la Iglesia en la civilización moderna no ha tenido una presencia, un rol de conducción de esta sociedad surgida hace 5 siglos atrás, porque llegó tarde, podríamos decir así, a esta civilización. Se resistió en los comienzos de esta civilización a asumir los desafíos que estaban verificándose en la sociedad históricamente, en el plano económico y en el plano político. Y por lo tanto su participación y su acción en los últimos siglos creo yo que ha sido más bien defensiva, ha sido relativamente marginal. Y pienso que si nos proponemos conscientemente ser constructores de esa nueva civilización y somos capaces de elaborar conceptos, contenidos y proyectos para ella, tenemos una oportunidad histórica nueva, porque, bueno, tenemos que pensar en términos seculares, en términos históricos y no solamente coyunturales. Esta civilización moderna, creo yo que está de alguna manera terminando, porque estamos transitando hacia otra, ha sido capitalista, ha sido fundamentalmente en lo económico una civilización capitalista, en lo político ha sido una civilización fundamentalmente estatal, basada en las estructuras estatales y partidistas, y en lo cultural ha sido una civilización naturalista, fundada en las ciencias positivas, digámoslo así, simplificando un poco las cosas. Yo creo que el tema de este encuentro, mercado, Estado y sociedad civil, es un tema central en la perspectiva de pensar, de concebir y de proyectar, de ser parte de esta transición hacia una nueva civilización. Pero para poder pensar este tema desde un proyecto hacia el futuro, creo yo que debemos ser capaces de liberarnos de los modos como estos tres conceptos básicos han sido concebidos durante la civilización moderna, esta que está terminando. En esta civilización moderna, cuando se habla del mercado, se identifica el mercado con el capitalismo. El mercado es el capitalismo, principalmente. Y es difícil, incluso cuando se habla de la economía de mercado y se hace la crítica de la economía del mercado, se está pensando en hacer la crítica del capitalismo, porque el capitalismo es la forma del mercado que el mercado asumió y asume todavía en esta sociedad moderna. Cuando hablamos de la política, ocurre lo mismo. Se identifica la política con la realidad del Estado, con la realidad de los partidos, es decir, con aquella estructura que organiza el orden social y que institucionaliza las funciones públicas, identificándolas con el Estado. Pero si estamos pensando y previendo la posibilidad de una civilización no capitalista y no estatista, o si se quiere, postcapitalista y postestatista, nos vemos exigidos a reelaborar en profundidad estos conceptos del mercado y el concepto de la política, para poder establecer, para poder separar y romper esa fusión que se ha establecido. ¿Y por qué es necesario hacerlo, en mi opinión? Porque evidentemente el mercado es absolutamente necesario. Ha existido siempre a lo largo de la historia, existirá siempre a lo largo de la historia. Pero si nosotros identificamos mercado con capitalismo, como se ha hecho en esta civilización, se está implícitamente asumiendo que el capitalismo es imprescindible y será necesario siempre. Y lo mismo ocurre con respecto al Estado. Si identificamos la política con la política estatal, con el orden social e institucional con el Estado, lo público con el Estado, estamos asumiendo que siempre la política tendrá que ser estatista, tendrá que ser estatal. Y yo creo que esa es la tarea teórica que es importante realizar y que aquí en la breve presentación oral, digamos, no puedo incorporar mayores elementos, pero elaboré un texto donde desarrollo un poquito más esas ideas. A mí me parece fundamental romper esos nexos teóricos e ideológicos y mentales que se han consolidado a lo largo de siglos. Ahora, el concepto de sociedad civil, yo creo que también es problemático. Y yo creo que es un concepto que crea confusión en la perspectiva de esto que estamos planteando, porque el origen del concepto de sociedad civil es muy distinto al uso que se le está dando actualmente. Sociedad civil se contraponía en el pensamiento político al concepto de sociedad política, y ahora se lo contrapone a mercado y a Estado. Pero ¿qué se entiende por sociedad civil normalmente? Se entiende aquellas actividades económicas que no son capitalistas, cooperativas y aquellas actividades políticas que no son estatistas. Entonces se crea este supuesto espacio, este supuesto tercer espacio, al que se lo llama sociedad política, que concentra, que recoge todo aquello que es económico y que es político, que en nuestras sociedades no es ni capitalista ni estatista. Y entonces se lo subordina. Es una manera de conservar la identidad entre mercado y capitalismo, Estado y política, creando una suerte de espacio aparte, llamado sociedad civil, que recoge aquello que es economía no capitalista, existente en cooperativas y en otros tipos de organizaciones, y aquello que es política no estatista.
I'm sorry to have had to cut you off, but
Sí, pensé.
we'll be cutting off half of lunch if we let it go. So straight over to Adrian Pabst for the second response to the paper. Yeah, of course you can.
I think that the idea is that the commentators have some relation with the text of the paper, because in the contrary we have conference, and not have discussion. This is really not a good method.
Thank you very much. Well, as a political theorist, I very much welcome Professor Evers' case for bringing politics back into our discussions about the relations between state, market, and civil society. And since I share, much of the sentiment behind the presentation, let me offer three comments which are, I think, in part suggesting agreement, but perhaps also some critical questions and avenues for further arguments. And the first is on the so-called lib-lab consensus, which I think is a very useful starting point because it captures very much where we have been for the last sort of 20, 30 years, moving from a more embedded liberalism in the post-war era in a lot of the developed economies in the West to a more disembedded model where the liberal, the economic model of market fundamentalism has become more central, but also where the welfare state still plays an important role precisely because it compensates for market failure. So rather than actually constraining capital in the way that it perhaps should have done and did do in the post-war era, now, of course, welfare very much just is subservient to capitalism. It does exactly what the market doesn't do. It provides a basic income and some safety net for those who can't compete in this new disembedded market. So I think it's a very, very good starting point. And then at the same time, I think we can develop this in the following direction. I mean, one is to really take seriously the idea that we now have market states, that statehood is no longer predominantly defined by nation, by territory, but really by its relation to the market. And I think Caritas and Veritate here is particularly good on where we are. And in paragraph 39, we can read this, and I quote, "The exclusively binary model of market plus state is corrosive of society, while economic forms based on solidarity, which find their natural home in civil society without being restricted to it, build up society." In other words, what Pope Benedict is arguing, I think very rightly, is that convergence of state and market that we've seen for the last 20, 30 years actually corrodes society and marginalizes civil society in particular. And I think it's a very important point. The other direction in which we can develop this idea of the lib-lab consensus is to say that elsewhere in the world, we of course now see, the inverted phenomenon, which is that of state markets, where now the state defines the sort of market you have. And I'm thinking, of course, of countries like China, Russia, and other former transition countries that have now moved in the direction of state capitalism. And it seems to me that state capitalism, whilst it's very different from market capitalism, also shares a number of fundamental features, one of them being that it marginalizes civil society. Right? In state capitalist countries, civil society institutions and actors are also subordinate to other forces. So whilst market capitalism may not be as bad as state capitalism, they both essentially corrode society. And I think Catholic social teaching is crucial in conceptualizing just that. And the final element of this first point I'm making is that I think both models, market capitalism and state capitalism, exemplify the iconoclastic logic of destruction that is actually at the heart of capitalism. Because capitalism, first of all, isn't about a relationship of capital and labor or a mode of production. It's first and foremost a form of destruction because it essentially strips life, land, and labor of its sanctity. And you don't have to be a religious believer to say this. It's essentially the anthropological point that, life, land, and labor are generally considered to have some sacred element, right? And I think that's precisely what capitalism undermines. And I don't think Marx was nearly critical enough because he omitted life and nature from his thesis of commodification. We now know that commodification touches not just on labor, not just on social relations, but on the very meaning of life and our relationship to nature. This is where Laudato Si is such an important contribution. So that's my first point. The lib-lab consensus is a great way to frame our conversations. I think we can think more in terms of market states and state markets and what capitalism is. My second point relates to hybridity, which I think is a very useful heuristic, because social life in civil society is more integrated than perhaps other concepts would allow us to see. Clearly, our social life involves both material and immaterial aspects. Both, say, material security, but also, emotional stability. If you think of something like your house or your apartment, it isn't just bricks and mortars that provide shelter. It also provides you with a certain stability. It's your home. It's not just a house, right? And that integration, I think, is not reflected by either the free market or the bureaucratic state, because the free market views us as commodities and the bureaucratic states just as administrative units. So I like hybridity because I think it speaks to something that is our everyday experience. Life is generally more integrated. But then the question that arises from that is, what's the nature of pluralism that underpins hybridity? Do we mean by pluralism just a sort of coexistence of separate individuals with their identities? Or do we mean by pluralism something more relational? And if we mean more relational, then what does exactly relationality mean? How can we think of reciprocity not just, as Margaret Archer suggested earlier today, as a univocal thing, where reciprocity is, univocally good, or indeed univocally bad, but a more relational reciprocity? And that's, I think, something we need to both conceptualize but also translate into concrete measures. Because reciprocity, if we think about it in anthropological terms, is very much, I think, something that involves both wound and blessing, to refer to Luigino Bruni's work. We are wounded by gifts, but we can also be blessed by them. And it's a very complex relationship, which is never just one or the other. Finally, my third point is about multi-purpose, which again I think is a good way of capturing that a lot of organizations don't just do one thing. Right? Be they state institutions or market ones or civil society ones, usually more than one purpose, or often more than one purpose is involved. But of course the question then arises as to which purpose among these multiple purposes dominates others. And the reality of multi-purpose is that very often power and wealth end up prevailing over other purposes. So I think we need to think how we can avoid that both power and wealth essentially override other purposes. I think we need to think in terms of mutual recognition, that everyone, I think, naturally and culturally seeks a certain place and role in society. And how can institutions reflect that quest for mutual recognition? Because most people don't strive for huge abstract wealth or domination of others. Most people strive essentially for recognition. They want to be recognized for what they contribute to society, be it in their families, be it at their workplace, be it as fellow citizens. So how can we afford a greater place to that? I think it ties in with considerations of the common good, not defined as some aggregation of individual utility, not GDP, as Stefano Zamano has argued, but rather as a combination of individual fulfillment and mutual flourishing. So the common good really is about a balance of interests, and I think that's what's missing from both state and market organizations, and I think that's what the presentation very much helps us to understand, that state and market only represent certain interests, whereas we need really a much greater balance of interest across society. And that in turn requires a transformation of state, market and civil society institutions, in line with what Pope Benedict has described as injecting the logic of gratuitousness into the logic of contract. So more gift into the marketplace and more gift also into the way the state operates. I think what's so important about the civil economy tradition that it tries to conceptualize questions of shared benefit, reciprocal needs and mutual assistance within the market. Not as something that's external to the market, but actually that's intrinsic to a good functioning market economy. Because for this tradition, an economic contract, and indeed a contract involving state and citizens, can be a sympathetic negotiation about shared value and shared benefit, as well as, of course, recognizing that some self-interest is involved. So in conclusion, then, I very much welcome the presentation. I think the idea of hybridity, I think the idea of multi-purpose and bringing politics back into it is really valuable. And now I think the challenge and the task for us is to think how laws, regulations, ownership and management models can reflect these purposes and how we can think of making the common good central to all of these institutions. Thank you very much.